want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
We are the Mad Men of Masculinity.
Your home for healthy masculinity. We're just real men having real conversations for you.
Good day, Mad Men Mafia.
That's right. I am Kirkin Samuels.
And I am Jason B. Kendrick.
And we are the Mad Men of Masculinity.
That's right. We're just real men having real conversations for you.
For
Today,
you have a real conversation.
You know, this being the day that it is, MLK Day, honoring this powerful man, that we should probably talk about the measure of a man. Like what makes a good man? What measures should we use? What criteria should we use to decide what is a good man?
Man, and that's a deep question. But we'd love to have your feedback, man. If you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube or I don't know, TikTok or wherever you're watching this, holler at your boy. Put something down in the comments, especially if we're live here. We'll give you a shout out. I'm curious of what everybody thinks, man. I've been kind of kicking this around in my head a little bit in terms of what is that? Like, yeah, I mean, because there's a lot of people that would actually say that Martin Luther King Jr. was not a good person, not a good man, or at least had some junk in his trunk. I mean, not to pivot the conversation away from all the work that he did and stuff. So, but a lot of people would measure him in different ways and say that that he wasn't a good man because of some things or rumors of things or whatever. And so, but at the same time, we got a national holiday. At the same time, the world is probably a completely different place because of the life that he lived. So, it's a great thought, man, in terms of what is the measured stick? I mean, how do we know that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually glad you brought that up because I think one of the things that is actually the greatest legacy of Martin Luther King is the fact that he did such great things, but he was still just a man. He's still a human being.
Mm-hmm.
He had his own foibles. He liked the ladies. He had all that stuff going on, but he's still just a man. But so many people can use him as a yardstick for what he accomplished. Even being a man, even being a flawed man, having all of these, issues or whatnot that he may have dealt with, being just a normal man, he still accomplished so much. And he had his set of values. He had his foundation. He was nonviolent and he lived by that. Even when he was getting violence perpetrated on him, he lived that way. And so I think sometimes it's maybe not the fact that he had flaws, but the fact that despite his flaws, he accomplished so much, and that we have a holiday, honoring him and what he accomplished.
So then, do we start off the conversation with almost in terms of what's the measure of a good man? Do we start off the conversation with kind of I don't want to say the opposite, but the statement or the idea that a good man is not a perfect man?
Right.
I mean, is that kind of the two go hand in hand in terms of, good doesn't necessarily mean perfect in terms of us being human?
Yeah, I mean, the work I do shadow work. That's all inner child work. And I think that in and of itself kind of goes hand in hand with this topic, that until you accept your flaws, until you accept the shadow, until you accept those sides of yourself, how can you truly be a good man? Like Jordan Peterson talks about, a dangerous man is a good man who has his, danger under control, or a good man is a dangerous man that has it under control. Those things, I think, being a real man, being a man of value and someone that can be measured against, is someone who understands those sides and accepts those sides and still does good things. I think so many of us, I spend probably half of my life hiding those parts of myself from others, because what if they found out? What if they found out I wasn't perfect? What if they found out that I drink? What if they found out I do this? What if they found out I do that? What if they found out I was human? What would they think? And until you get to the point of, hey, it's what I think that's most important. It's what my family thinks that's most important, not what they think that's most important. And I can still accomplish great things despite my foibles, despite my shadow, despite my flaws. And in most cases, in the work that we do, a lot of times it's because of those. Once you accept those things, you heal those wounds, you heal those addictions. Now you have this foundation that you can stand on to help others because you've been through the war. I think a lot of times this whole knight in shining armor thing doesn't do anybody any good because unless you've got some dings, you got some scars, you've got some experience, you're not going anywhere. You don't have anything to share.
So a good man is not necessarily, or a good man is not a nice guy. Right. And so, I mean, and what I mean by nice guy, I mean, the whole nice guy syndrome kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because when you trying to walk the nice guy line, then you're seeking to be perceived as perfect. Yeah. I mean, when you walk, I've been down that road before where, I'm trying to be liked. I'm trying to be perceived as doing all the right things. I'm trying to be perceived as likable, and then you get to the point where you try to be perceived as flawless. And again, when you do that, by default, you have to start covering up your fallacies as a human being. And and that leads to other things as well. That leads to the fact that at the root cause of it, we definitely are on the same page that that the nice guy route is is probably the most dangerous kind of guy, because that's the guy that'll stab you in the back and keep you from telling the story about about how the nice guy is not perfect. And so so in terms of what that good man is, and especially if you're in a dating market. I mean, I don't know why that just jumped right into my spirit right there, but especially if you're in a dating market, man, it's like, it's so easy to try to present. It's so easy to try to present that cover, of I got this, I got that, and how close can I present myself as being perfect? And it's like, dude, I mean, if you're with a woman or dating a woman, or she's trying to date you because you're perceived as perfect, then she deserves what she gets.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you bring that up because I just watched some with Trevor Noah, and he really encapsulated it really well. He's like, there's nice and there's kind. It's nice not to tell somebody's got a booger on their face. It's kind to tell them, hey, you got something on your face. It may not be nice. It may come across as rude to some people, but being upfront, being honest, being direct is much more kind. Telling somebody that they've messed up is kind. May not be nice, but it's much more kind. It's much more loving instead of nice. And that's that whole nice guy thing of, oh, I bend over backwards, do everything they ask me to. That's nice, but it's not kind. You're not being kind because you're not being honest. You're the man without the backbone. You're the man without the foundation. So kindness is much more what a man of value would strive for. And kindness doesn't always mean, it's like, being loving doesn't always mean being nice. Being loving a lot of times means telling somebody no. Being loving means, guiding somebody away from something that's dangerous. It means, telling somebody that that's not good for them and helping them through something. That's more loving. That's more kind. It's not nice. Anytime you've had to tell somebody your kids no, anytime you had to pull your kid out of traffic, anytime you had to do something that may not be nice, but it's kind, I think that's what we as men of value should strive for. How we measure ourselves is how kind are we, how compassionate are we, how loving are we, not how nice we are.
Dude, you struck another chord, man. That's like two things that I'm like, man, both of those I want to pounce on so bad. Having 4 kids and now 2 grandkids, and having been down that road of being the dad, sometimes you got to be willing to be perceived as a jerk, for the right reasons, right? For the right things. It's like, I'm not gonna, especially from a dad perspective, it's like, I'm not gonna tell you what you want to hear, or somebody's got to be the heavy, right? I mean, and unfortunately, you can be perceived that way. And quite honestly, unfortunately, a lot of us get dinged in the long term in terms of who's telling the story, right? If somebody is telling the story of said dad, right, and let's say it's the ex or something like that or whatever, it's real easy to get into a courtroom and say, and say, yeah, he doesn't do this, he doesn't do that, or the things, and it's like, yeah, but you missed out on the fact that he's doing good dad kind of stuff. Dad role is different than mom role. and dad role is not always pretty. Dad's got to be sometimes the lion that has to take down, the bad guy. And so yeah, in terms of the love, sometimes tough love is love too, right? And so, but to your point about the nice versus the kind, I heard somebody at one point, and this was I'm not even gonna butcher the story, but ultimately they were trying to compare like New Yorkers versus Californians, right? And whether it's right or wrong, the point that they were making is that if you can have a flat on the side of the road, a flat tire, and a New Yorker will pull over and cuss you out the whole time they're helping you change the tire. Get out of here, you friggin' idiot. You don't even know how to blah blah blah. But at the same time, they're helping you change the flat tire. Where this person was saying, they went to California, and somebody in California, you're on the side of the road with a flat tire, and they might stop and roll down the window and say, "Oh, bro, I'm so sorry, man. That really blows, man. I'm so sorry it happened to you." But then they roll up their window and keep on going. And so that was a comparison that this person was talking about in terms of like the whole idea of nice versus kind.
Yeah. I mean, there's another comparison where you talk about like Americans or English versus Russians, and Russians seem rude, but it's because they've lived under this, lifestyle where like it was life and death. So they don't have time for all this niceties. They need to know where you stand, and so they may come across to a lot of Americans as rude, but they're just being direct. They're like, no. But they're like you said, they're probably much more compassionate, much more helpful, much more kind. They're just may come across as rude because of how they speak and how direct they are, and how they'll look at you in the face, and you say, how do you like this? Like, that's stupid. That's kind to them. They're just being honest. You ask them a question, they're being honest. This whole fake political correctness and niceties of, oh, don't say that, you might hurt their feelings. Well, we see what happens when people don't get their feelings hurt occasionally. We see what's going on in the world today, especially here in the West and the States. People don't get their feelings hurt occasionally. They don't start asking questions like, well, maybe that was me. They don't start any self-inquiry of, well, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I should look at this. Maybe I should. No, if they're not challenged ever, if they're not made to feel bad ever, then there is no self-inquiry. Then you get these entitled children that are running around that you can't tell them nothing because they know everything, because nobody's ever told them no. Nobody's ever told them that's not cool. You can't do that. Nobody's ever like hurt their feelings. And so I think kindness is something we should definitely bring back. Kindness is something that is about being honest. It's about being honest about your feelings, about being honest about your opinion, and then allow people to have their reactions to it and let that be okay. This whole fake kindness, fake niceness stuff with, political correctness, it's not doing anybody any good. But speaking of doing ourselves some good, it's time for us to do ourselves a break. So we'll be right back. We are the Madmen of Masculinity. This is KLDC in the Mile High City. We'll see you in a minute.
Yeah, I was definitely about to butcher that whole story, but the point behind it was, one person one person can pull you over and cuss you out, but help you, and the other person can.
There we go. Yeah, no more Mr. Nice Guy. If you guys haven't read this book, ladies, you haven't read this book, every man should read this book and then give it to his lady. I was trying to show it, but if I get too close, it gets too bright. But yeah, no more Mr. Nice Guy should be in every man's bookshelf.
Mm-hmm.
Every man's Kindle.
I got mine in Audible.
Yeah, well, Audible, Kindle. I got it in all forms, I believe, so I can share it wherever.
Is that that's Robert Glover, right?
Yeah, Dr. Robert Glover. Yeah, we got to email him and get him on the show because about time we talk about him. We talk about him so much, we haven't had him on the show. And Roland, thank you for your comments. We appreciate it. When they get a little long, sometimes we can't address them, but we appreciate you being here and being a part of the Madman Mafia. It is awesome to have you here. Speaking of Roland, man, I forgot. I just realized right before we jumped on here, I didn't realize he told me to call him. So Roland, I'm gonna holler at you, my man. Good to see you, brother. He be forgetting. All right, you ready? Mm-hmm. Yep. We're back. Madmen of Masculinity. KLDC 12:20 a.m. in the Mile High City on the interwebs. Everywhere, global. You know what I'm saying? You can holler at us on YouTube. You can holler at us on Facebook. Man, you got TikTok reels doing the little TikTok. What are they, reels on TikTok or stories? One of them.
It's a Facebook reel or a TikTok? I don't know what they call it. Whatever. We on all that, man. All of them. Holler at your boys. Let us know what you think. If you agree or disagree. We're talking about the measure of a man, like um, in honor of Martin Luther King's birthday, as we're recording this here today. Um, kind of a fairly famous quote. We're talking about the measure of a man, and what makes a good man. And we started off, the whole first segment was really almost kind of like what it's not. And it's not perfection. It's not nice guy, quote unquote, nice guy, in terms of nice guy syndrome and all that. So, yeah, it's not any of that kind of stuff. And it's definitely not perfection.
Well, I mean, I think it's just the point of the whole first segment was just basically if the guy's coming off too varnished, too polished, too knight in shining armor, he's got no foibles, he's got no flaws. That's a big red flag. I mean, a real man, a valuable man he'll tell you, I don't know, he'll tell you the truth. He'll be kind in that way of being honest to you, which may not come across as nice, but that's really a better way. I mean, you would much rather have somebody, like you said, be a New Yorker, be rude and cuss you out while he's helping you change a tire than be all nice and, oh, I'm sorry that happened to you while he's driving by. We need some more, boots on the ground and hands in the dirt and people helping out and being kind. And so I think one of the things I brought up, because it's a conversation, and I'm reading this Sage book because honestly, we're getting to that stage of our lives. We're getting to that age. We're getting to that sage age, Kirk and I and a lot of our buddies. And so those stages of manhood that we go through, baby, childhood, adolescence, adult, middle age, sage, and so on. But by measuring a man, sometimes you have to take into account his stage of life, and sometimes even like his stage of soul development. Because for a lot of guys, we would think that, say Andrew Tate, somebody like that is the measure of man for a lot of guys. But then if you really look at it from kind of a higher viewpoint or an older viewpoint, more mature viewpoint, money, cars, girls, it's more of a juvenile kind of, this is what a man is, versus the old guy, the elder, sitting around the fire with his pipe, dishing out wisdom and giving you parables and stories to help you become a better person, to help you become a better man. And all the entitlement we see, a lot of the issues of younger generations in the entitlement is because they don't have that sage to help guide them into what it means. How do you measure a man? How do you become a better man? They don't have that guidance. They don't have the rite of passages. And I think it's something we need to bring back so that the younger generations, because I mean, a young man will burn the house down to find his keys. Like, he doesn't have that depth of vision, doesn't have the wisdom to know, like, hey, maybe that's a little too far. Maybe don't do that. Maybe don't burn the house down. Maybe get the flashlight and start looking. But without the wisdom, without guidance, he doesn't have that awareness.
Yeah. One of the things I've observed through like secondhand in terms of watching, daughters go through life, watching the son go through life, all those kinds of things. Our next generation, this is my opinion, this is, not necessarily old guy opinion, but this is definitely front porch, in a rocking chair. I'm definitely at that phase of like front porch and rocking chair, get off my lawn kind of opinion. But I think our next generation, man, they are trying to be, they're trying to be good. They're trying to be good through being nice guys, but not much of it is tangible. Like, they're trying to be good through emotion, and in my opinion, being too emotional. They're trying to be good through just being, just being nice, just being a nice guy, and wanting to be liked and just kind of latching on to something or trying to find identity, or I don't know what it is, man. But I feel like it's not, it's a minority in this next generation. When I say next generation, I'm talking about like what would be or like specifically in my case, my son's age. There's not many that are really putting their hands in the dirt of life and really, wanting to grind things out, do things the hard way, or go through adversity and all those kinds of things, man. And so, I have one word specifically for me that sums up this whole topic. I'll save it for another maybe the next segment or something like that before we get to the end. And one word that really rings true. But I think the next generation, man, they're searching, and I just don't think they really know where to find it, man. I really, I just think man, I don't know if it's lost or just they don't have it or what, but I think obviously I'm speaking in generalities, but I think this next generation, man, they're really trying to latch on and figure out what it means to be good. And I don't know that they have it.
Yeah, I think the PC narrative, being politically correct, being overly fake
Mhm.
nice, and all this stuff, and watching what you say has taken away the kindness and the compassion and the truth of being a human being. And men, I mean, we got to know. I mean, we talk about it so much that one of the reasons there's a big issue nowadays is there's, a lot of ladies, you don't realize that there's, in their minds, because of how they were raised, there's no repercussions for what they say. For men, a lot of them are starting to get to that point now. They're overly nice, they're overly fake, and they don't realize that, there's still all repercussions. And it's something that we have just lost, I think, just without the example of older men, without the example of the sage, without the example or the rite of passage and going through that phase of like, now you're becoming a man and this is what this means. We are the protectors and providers, and that may come to violence at some point. And you have to understand that that's kind of our purpose. And all this fake niceness and PC stuff and everybody talking about, I don't know, pronouns and all their emotions and things is taken away from actually being present and realizing that, boots on the ground, hands in the dirt, this could get ugly. You need to be prepared for that. But, without the barrier of repercussions, without the barrier of a violent repercussion for your actions, guys, I mean, you see young kids nowadays just going nuts and doing crazy things, and because there's no repercussions. And so it's something that I guess maybe we as, maybe we should get off the porch and grab some baseball bats and go out and get some repercussions. I'm not sure. I mean, probably get in trouble for it, but there needs to be some repercussions or at least some awareness of repercussions for the younger generation so they know that being fake nice and saying all these kind words but not meaning them is not kindness, it's not compassion, it's not truth. It's just fake niceness. And that's why I think they feel lost because they don't have that feeling of groundedness. When you are honest with yourself, when you're honest with others, you feel real. There's a self-respect there. Like, I'm telling this guy the truth. This is how I feel. This is my opinion. It may just be my opinion, but it's my truth. And without being able to express that, you don't feel that kind of self-respect. And, also not understanding that, repercussions sometimes come and being how to handle those things. If it's all words and there's no physical repercussions for young men nowadays, they say whatever they want, do whatever they want, but they don't realize, they don't understand like what we grew up with. Like, say that again, you get a whooping. Cross that line, this is what's going to happen. There seems to be that we've taken all the repercussions out, and as human beings, we need to have boundaries. We need to have repercussions in our lives so we understand, what life's about.
Yeah. The measure of a good man in being a good man, you got to be willing to live with danger for the sake of good. You got to be willing to put yourself in harm's way for the betterment of others. And it ain't fair. It's not fair. Well, I'm a guy. Why a guy's got to be? It ain't fair, man. Hey, guess what? We also don't have to push out babies. You know what I'm saying? We also don't have to deal directly with menopause. I mean, we also don't have to cramp every month for, half of our, I mean, there's so many things that aren't fair, but the reality is to be a good man, you got to be willing, part of that deal in the long term is being able to step in the way of danger for the sake of good of all, as opposed to being dangerous for the detriment of all. Yep. I mean, and what I mean by that is, going out and doing harm to other people, mass casualties or not preserving peace for the world and for those around us, and not, protecting and all these kind of things. But, every good man, every great man, probably every man with a holiday named after him, probably has a thread in their story of some sort of danger that they walked through for the sake of good, for the sake of mankind. So we as men, we got to be willing to do that. Like, are you willing to rush the cockpit when there's a terrorist locked in there? Like, are you willing to take down a bad guy in a room full of good people? If you're not willing to step in the line of danger for the betterment of others, then you probably don't have a good chance of being known or remembered as a good man. Definitely not a great man.
Yeah, I believe it. We as males truly become men when we find that thing that we would die for. We find that thing we would take risk for. We find that thing that we'll take judgment for, and persecution, and those things that we believe in so much to our core, so deeply we believe in them, that we would sacrifice ourselves for, we would defend, we would fight for. Those are the things that really measure a man. And for a lot of us, especially as we get to our sitting on the rocking porch sage age, telling everybody to get off our lawn, we realize that the things we thought made a man, the things that we measured ourselves as teenagers and as young men, aren't really those things. Everything that you own, all the money you have, all the toys, is going to be somebody else's when you croak. Your lady, your kids, it might be somebody else's if you get taken out of here. So what are you measuring yourself by? What's the yardstick you're using? And legacy, doing something of value for the community, making the world a better place. These are truly the things that make, a true great man and truly measure man's greatness. And a lot of those men you would never know them. They work at some church somewhere. They work in the soup kitchen. They work in, addict recovery. They, a lot of former gang members are in the prisons helping guys, recover and rehabilitate. Those men are men you want to measure yourself by, because they're not looking at the temporary things like money and wealth and all that stuff. They're looking at, how can I make the world a better place? How can I make this man in front of me better? And how can I do something that's of kindness, of compassion, and betters the future? And speaking of bettering the future, I guess it's time for us to take ourselves a break. So we're the
man. Let's take us a break.
This is KLDC, and we'll be right back.
Right on time.
Do you remember what you wanted to bring up for them?
Yes, I did, and I'm kind of ticked off at you. I'll clarify why in a second.
Did I read your mind again?
Shut up.
All right, ready?
Hold on a second. Let me reset my. All right, here we go. Your boys are back. Mad Men of Masculinity, KLDC 1220 AM in the Maha City podcast platforms. I mean, man, wherever you listen to a podcast, I mean, you can tell the ALEXA in your house to find us, and she will. I won't say the name because there's one like 12 inches from me right now.
She listening right now.
But we just doing our thing, man. We just trying to make the world a better place, man. We just trying to, be good men. And one of the things, and I said, the one word that stands out for me in this whole topic, kind of ticked off at you a little bit because you kind of stole my thunder a minute ago, and that is legacy.
Legacy.
That is legacy. That word, man. That word is kind of deep in my spirit. Specifically even today, I just got back from a short trip, weekend trip back east for my first granddaughter's first birthday, and just being in the room and, I'm just kind of looking around, and it's my granddaughter's birthday. But yet at the same time, there was like a sense in me, and, not from a, me perspective, but just from a legacy perspective. My daughter's here, my granddaughter's here. I mean, just seeing it all kind of happen kind of thing. I felt a sense of responsibility, really. But a lot of that comes down to like legacy. And it's like, what kind of legacy are we leaving behind? Because to your point, everything we have is going to be somebody else's. I mean, I'm not stupid. My wife is fantastic. She's amazing. And so if I don't wake up tomorrow, I'm not an idiot. She's probably going to have another great man um, at some point in the future. My kids, could have a stepdad, at some point in the future. I mean, on and on and on. All of my house, my car, my fantastic smartwatch is going to be somebody else's, man. I got a will that designates all that kind of stuff. It's all going to be somebody else's. Few things that aren't going to be somebody else's is my fingerprint, my retina, my DNA, and my legacy. Nobody else can have my legacy at all ever in history. I'm the only person that's going to leave the wake behind the ship of my life that I've pushed through the ocean uniquely. And so, us as men, when we operate on a day-to-day basis, particularly in the relationships and the decisions that we make, we always got to keep in mind, man, that we are creating a legacy, good or bad. Good or bad. When somebody looks down at your tombstone, or when somebody, thinks of you one day, what are they going to think? What good did you do while you were here? There's like a 1 in 400 trillion, whatever it is, chance of being alive, of actually us existing and having this life. What are you going to do with it? And us as men, we got to be willing to live for our legacy.
Yeah, I mean, you get into the philosophy of it and, break it down and, everybody wants to know what's the secret of life. Well, the secret of life is to live. It's to live your life. What empowers you, what inspires you, and go out and do those things. I mean, you think of Olympic athletes and NFL athletes, like, it's sports and competition that inspire them, and then they inspire us. So whatever it is that lights you up, that gets you inspired, go do that thing. I mean, there are some that take the whole legacy thing, they go the wrong way with it. Genghis Khan, he wanted to own the world, and that was his legacy. Alexander the Great, you hear all these people in history, and I'm a little more humble. I don't want to take over the world. I just want to make the world a better place in my little way. But each of us, if we basically spend our lives living it, trying to be the best version of ourselves we can be, trying to do what we can in the world to make it a better place. Because once you croak and somebody's at your tombstone, they're remembering you. If they're saying he did the best he could, he, lived by compassion, he was honest. I mean, those are the kind of legacies we as every man can strive for. You want your kids to be, sad that you left because you taught them so many things and you did so much for them. That's the kind of legacy we can all leave. You don't have to be world famous. You don't got to be a bestseller. You don't got to be on every TED stage. You don't got to be a millionaire, billionaire to leave a lasting legacy. Your legacy is you living your life. And to Kirk's point, you're leaving ripples. Whatever you do causes ripples out in the world. Try to make them good ripples. Do the best you can. Because one of my first mentors, he was a near-death experience survivor. He was dead for 28 minutes, had the whole near-death experience, And there's a life review that you go through. When they say your life flashes before your eyes, it's not just a thing they say, it happens. And in one of those things, when you really go through it, you get to experience your effect on all the people that you interact with all throughout your life as them. And when you think about life in that way, it really makes you think about, how am I interacting with this person? Am I being kind, or am I just being fake nice? Am I trying to help this person, or am I trying to get something from them? Those legacies will follow you. You get to judge yourself when you leave this body and see how you did. So if you're thinking about your legacy, just try to be the best, most loving, compassionate, kind person, man, you can be.
Just doing a little bit of good in a day, man. Who knows what
Return your shopping cart
effect that can have? Yeah, I ain't never returned my shopping cart, man. I'm sorry if that ain't. You can find my last shopping cart between two other cars.
That's gonna be your judgment, guys. And be sitting there with a shopping cart, like, take it back,
dude. If that's the worst that somebody can say about me, then I'm good with that. I was standing at the airport, standing at the curb, waiting for the shuttle to come to take me to where I parked, and I didn't even notice it, but there was a black backpack on the bench that was sitting there. And the guy, one of the airport guys, walked up. He goes, "Is that yours?" I said, "No." He gets on the radio, and about 3 minutes later, a couple cops show up, and one of them's got a dog, and and they're sniffing the dog sniffs the backpack, and just turns and walks away. And the guy was like, "Yeah, you're fine." So they cracked it open a little bit, looked inside, and then he handed it. The police officer handed it to the airport guy and said, "Oh, you're good." So the airport guy took it back into the airport. Well, meanwhile, a couple minutes later, my shuttle comes by, and it would be the same shuttle because that's the pickup spot for that. So my next shuttle comes by, I get on the shuttle, and we're about a minute away from where he picked me up, and over his radio, the dispatcher calls, and bus number, whatever. Hey, there's a guy that just got dropped off a little bit ago, and he said he left his backpack on the shuttle bus, and the driver was like, "No, it ain't on my bus." And so I had one of those moments of like, do I just mind my business, or do I connect some dots and maybe see what? I mean, who knows?
Yeah.
And then it hit me again, kind of in the right in the sternum section. I was like, man, I can't be quiet. Like, I can't do nothing. So I told my driver what I saw back at the island, and thinking that maybe there's something to it. And he radioed in, blah 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 blah. Long story short, I heard over the radio that the guy went back, and he went back. He realized that is where he left his backpack, and he was going back to the airport to go find it. And who knows? Maybe there was something important in there. Maybe there's a laptop. Maybe there was some documents. I don't know. Maybe there's something in there that. But either way, there was something in me, almost like a conviction that said, man, I can't sit by and do nothing. And so, a measure of a good guy, I think a measure of a good guy is a guy that's willing to, as opposed to saying somebody should do something, a guy that's willing to be the one to say, if somebody should do something, that somebody should be me.
Do something. And
exactly.
That's the thing. That's why I love getting to this age and learning more and more about humbleness. And realizing that humbleness doesn't mean weakness. To be humble means I know I have more to learn. I know there's more for me to learn. I don't know everything. And realizing that, having this huge legacy, having a huge company, making all this money, having mansions and all those different things isn't really about it. Isn't what it's really about. To your point, it's those little things. Return the shopping cart. Tell somebody, yeah, I think that's his bag. Help the lady with the bags, the little things that you hold the door for somebody, say hello to somebody, smile at somebody. I mean, you never know. You could be walking down the street and that one dude who's thinking to himself, he's ready to jump off the bridge. If somebody would just say something and you're like, hey man, good morning. And you happen to be that angel that God sent to save that man's life just because you said, hey, good morning. So like, to your point, if you feel that urge inside you, because I know so many times when people get on this path, they're like, well, what do I do? It feels so overwhelming. Follow that pull in your heart. Just like if you feel like a tug to like help somebody, give somebody money, just do that. That's those little things, those little instances, those little actions, they add up over time. And when you get to your deathbed and you're seeing St. Peter and you're watching your life review and you're like, oh yeah, look at all that stuff I did. Those are the things that really make the measure of a man. It really can lead to a legacy, can lead to you being remembered in a certain way. Yeah. But it doesn't have to be huge. So many of us, I know I went through that whole process. I went through a men's retreat and I did the 48-hour solo thing out in the woods by myself and got really grounded and present and really let a lot of things go. And was actually mad when I got done because I was like, well, all that stuff that I was striving for, that I was seeking attention for, all those things I was trying to do because I thought it would bring me something. And I let that go. And I was mad. Like, well, now what? Well, you start over. You start something new. What is it in your heart? What do you feel the pull to do? And just do those things. Plant those seeds. It's those little ripples that you create. You never know. I've seen so many stories. I love watching all these little TikTok stories of the guy who gave some homeless man $30 or $50 for something. Then he comes back 5 years later to help that man, save his business because that little gesture of kindness caused this ripple effect where now that guy owns these businesses and has all this money. And now he has the means to help him save his own business when he gave him that little kindness. Just go out and do those kind things. Be honest. If you got to be like the New Yorker and help that guy change his tire in the rain while you cuss him out, do that. But at least you're doing something.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that little thing that can make a huge difference in the world. And here's the reality of it. The reality of it is good men are rarely appreciated while they're alive. or good men are rarely appreciated while they're around anyway. It's not till a good man is gone that you really realize that a good man was present. Unfortunately, that's just kind of the way it is because a good man holds up space. I like to say a good man is like a pillar in a building. You go to an office building, you go in the lobby, the first floor, and you know there's pillars everywhere, but nobody decorates a pillar. You know, you don't celebrate the pillar, but the whole building is being held up by these pillars, right? And so, you know, all of the good things that are happening around us, you know, are being held up by somebody. And unfortunately, you know, as men, you know, it's not until we're no longer here that people really you don't get holidays while you're alive, right? I mean, and so that's just kind of the reality of it. It's just one of those things that we just have to accept as part of being a good man. You know, but as men, we got to do what we got to do. And speaking of got to do what we got to do, we got to take a break. We got to take our last break.
Yeah, that's why
we got to
gone.
do this. Yeah, we absolutely will. You can miss us for like another couple minutes because we're gonna be right back. Madmen and Masculinity, KLDC. You know, I think a lot of times, man, we want to be recognized, and the frustration in life for men is, especially if you're a good man, is that there really isn't a whole lot of recognition for just everyday good. We're surrounded by good men. You know, it's like when single women say, "Where are all the good men?" They're everywhere. They're probably in your friend zone or in your past. They're everywhere. They're good men, absolutely everywhere. You know, and just the way life is, good men rarely get recognized.
Yeah, I think that's something we probably talked about in the last segment too, but just
Yeah.
searching recognition is not the path to recognition. A lot of times it's the path to a lot of jealousy and judgment and stuff. But just doing you, being honest, being kind will gain you the recognition
Mhm.
over time. And yeah, and as
Yep.
for ladies looking for all the good men, he's probably the quiet guy reading his book, drinking his coffee, not chasing you.
Yep.
You need to
Yep.
start
Yep. All right. Your boys are back. Madmen of Masculinity, KLDC, trying to be good men today. You
trying to
know,
be good.
we just trying to be good, man. Just trying to do a little good,
Good.
be a little good, man. And you know, and part of being a good man is probably as we bring this thing down the last lap of the 4 times around the track mile. You know, one of the realities is we ought not chase the recognition, the limelight. We ought not chase the you know the center stage and just we just ought not chase the title of being a good man. We just need to live the life and let whatever happens in the long run.
Yeah, it's like, we used to joke about, and we've had so many episodes about the whole alpha man concept and stuff. It's like, and all these dudes running around going, I'm an alpha. If you got to say it, you ain't it. And it's just like being
Mhm.
a good man. Just be a good man, and you'll be known as a good man. Chasing recognition, trying to front, putting flashy cars and clothes, and trying to get all these likes and followers on social media and stuff doesn't make you a good man. It just makes you an attention seeker. And we're men, we shouldn't be attention seekers. That's kind of ladies' lane. We'll stay over here and do things. But by doing good, by making a difference, by being somebody who gets their hands dirty and helps others, and puts your shopping cart away, opens the door for people, smiles at people, plants seeds, and does those little things, you'll get the recognition. Granted, it may not be in the moment. A lot of times it's after the fact. So what I always say is make sure you take a break. Like we were talking about, if you work a lot, if you're the pillar of your company and everybody just takes you for granted, take a vacation. That week they will realize how much you do while you're gone. And then maybe they'll appreciate you more. But seeking the attention, seeking the recognition, a lot of times leads you down the wrong path. A lot of times it leads you down the ego path, the path of um, conceitedness and arrogance. You can be a good man, never speak a word to anybody else. You can plant these seeds. You can make these ripples in the world. You can make the world a better place without ever being attention seeking. But find your path, find your thing. What is it that inspires you? What is a lane that you want to go down, and go down that lane, whatever it is. You do that to the best of your abilities with an open heart, open mind, with kindness. You're going to leave a legacy. You're going to be thought of as a man who can be measured by others.
And us maintaining our, staying true to the integrity of who we are is important as well, in terms of not trying to be somebody that you're not, not trying to be the one that chases the, whatever it is, chases the big thing. And I'm gonna give us some credit, man. I'm gonna give us some kudos. We've been doing this for a whole lot of years, and quite honestly, if we wanted to, we could go down all of the red pill routes. You and I, both of us have the ability to be as bitter as every guy that's out there. We can be as cynical. We can talk about how terrible women are. We can talk about, all kinds of, I mean, we can do all of the stuff that those people are doing in these ecospheres of the internet, in terms of gaining views and gaining audience. Man, we can talk trash. We can, I mean, like I said, we can be as bitter and as red pill as anybody. I mean, we have the ability to, but we choose to keep it, true to who we are as people, in terms of who we want to be. What do we want our legacy to be? When my granddaughter is watching this video on YouTube or whatever platform it is, 40 years from now, is she going to see who I really want her to remember me as? And that's the kind of thing we got to be willing to do as men, is to maintain a line of integrity in terms of being who you want to be remembered as. And to that, again, it still comes down to the idea of legacy. Who do you want to, what do you want people to say? What do you want your folks, your great grandkids to say about you one day? Or if you don't have any kids, what do you want your friends' friends? What do you want the internet to say about you one day, in terms of stuff like this? A platform and those kind of memories and those kind of legacies.
Yeah, there was something you said that caught my attention, and then it went away, but I'll just see if I can find it again. But doing things for yourself, doing things that light you up, doing things with an open heart is really kind of the path to it. And, yeah, we can get as bitter as anybody. That's what it was. Thank you very much. Victim. If you live your life as a victim, which most of those red pill guys are doing, that's why they're so bitter and so angry about women and society and the Democrats and Republicans and whatever else. They're living their lives as a victim. Do not be a victim. Be who you are unapologetically, with your heart open, your mind open, with kindness, and don't be a victim of anybody else. Be responsible. That is one of the things, probably the number one thing we are lacking so much in the younger generation and in the world today, is this sense of self-responsibility. The sense of, this whole, I'm a victim, misery loves company, and victimhood is monetized daily. Everybody's a victim because social media and marketing tell them they are. But if you decide to become a man, decide you're not a victim of anybody but yourself, and you take that ownership and you start to look at yourself and start asking questions like, how could I have made that better? How could I have done better? How could I not make myself a victim in this situation? What was my responsibility in that situation? Because we all play a role. When I was addicted to alcohol and porn and sex, I was playing a role. I may have thought I was a victim of these things, but I was still playing a role. I was still choosing daily to do those things. I wasn't being introspective. I was being, oh, woe was me, poor me. I'm addicted to alcohol and drugs, whatever. Every man needs to get to that point where, like, I'm no longer going to be a victim. And as soon as I choose that and decide that to not be a victim, that's going to go leaps and bounds into the direction you want to go. Just like Kirk said, who's the man you want to be? Who's the guy you want to be in 10 years and emulate that guy and become that guy? Make those decisions. But that first starts with realizing you're not a victim.
Yeah. For the longest time in my life, I really latched on to the victim of being the son of my father and happened to have the same name as him. And I really latched onto that, man. And all of my problems, I blamed on him. And all of the addiction that I had, I mean, my failed relationships and I blamed on him, man. I blamed everything on him. And then I'm like, wait a minute, man. He didn't make me do all that. I mean, he didn't, and at some point over the last several days, I don't know, maybe again, bored on a flight or something like that, I was listening to an audiobook and something prompted me to do the general math on how much child support I paid over all of the years that I paid child
I
support.
did
And
good at you.
we're talking over 2 decades of child support. I'm done now. Good, but and it was like $150,000 cash,
Wow.
like cash. I mean, on top of benefit, having the kids under benefits and all that kind of stuff. And at first, man, I started cussing in my brain, and then I'm like, wait a minute, man, ain't nobody make me lay down with who I lay down with. Ain't nobody make me marry and say I do to the people I said I do. It ain't nobody make me do all that, man. So, so there's no victim mentality. And out of those experiences, came the kids that I have now. And quite honestly, I love my kids, right? I mean, even the ones that don't like me right now, for whatever reasons. I'm not a victim to none of that kind of stuff. And so to your point, man, as men, we can't be victim to those things, man. We made choices and decisions, and those choices and decisions have consequences and repercussions, and we got to roll with them. And our job is to make do the best we can to fix the car when it breaks down in life, and keep pressing forward, just being the best man we can be to create the best legacy we can create.
Yeah. Yeah. My whole stance on the whole victim thing is that when you think that you're a victim, you take all your power away because it's some outside force is affecting you. Some outside force is doing this to you. Once you decide you're not a victim and it's your responsibility, now you have all the power. You have the, God's power coming through you, the power of the universe, Shazam, whatever you want to call it. You got this power now running through you because now you're not a victim. Now you're responsible. So if you're responsible for your mistakes, you're responsible for the solutions as well. And you can make those solutions. So you want to take your power back. If you're feeling, depressed and in a dead end situation, and you feel like it's time to take yourself out, you're in victim mindset. Just know that that's victim mindset. When you take responsibility, you have all the power to change it. You can get up in the morning and get up on the wrong side of bed and get back in bed and get up on the right side of the bed. You have the power to change it. This whole I'm a victim of my moods. I'm a victim of my emotions. I'm a victim of my job and my whatever. That's just a story you're telling yourself. You're only a victim to your mindset and what you choose or choose not to do about it. You have the responsibility, which means you have the power to change everything. So if you're struggling right now, it means you're in a victim mindset. It's that simple. You're a victim of something. And as soon as you decide to take the responsibility, you take your power back. When you take your power back, you have what you need. You have all the tools. They're all out there. You just have to change your mindset into one of power and responsibility. And then all those tools and all those things you need will come into your purview. You can't see them now because you're looking through the lens of a victim. And that's a very narrow lens. It's like tunnel vision. You can't see nothing. Once you decide to be responsible, now all of a sudden you open up your viewpoint. You can see all these different avenues, all these things. So try things out. You don't have to find the perfect solution right away. A lot of times for most of us, we start in one direction, then that leads us to the other thing, that leads us to the other thing, this other thing. And then at some point we come on top of the mountain, we're like, oh, I made it. It wasn't a straight line. It was the rugged path, but we still got there. But you have to take responsibility, put one foot in front of the other. And once you do that, I tell you what, your value and your measure will go up.
Yeah, a broken stick can draw a straight line. The last two letters in victim is I am. And it's when you focus on I'm the son of an alcoholic. I'm a man who was abused in every way growing up. I'm an ex-husband. I'm this and that. And you tend to focus on you. You tend to focus on the things that happen to you. When you change those last two letters, realize you have a choice. You change the last two letters of that word to the choice, to OR. You go from victim to victor, right? And when you go from victim to victor, you take the steering wheel back in life as a man, and you say, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to take whatever happened to me, and I'm going to make it into something. I'm going to take all these scraps and leftovers from all these different Thanksgiving meals, and I'm going to make me something. One of the best sandwiches out there is the restaurant that makes a Thanksgiving sandwich with all the different leftovers. And so us as men, we can make a difference, man. And when it comes to your legacy, when it comes to, the measure of a good man, it really, a lot of it has to do for a lot of us, for most of us, probably almost all of us, is what do we do with the cards that we were dealt? You know, I mean, what do we do with the hand that we were dealt, with the circumstances and all that? And then, man, you know, if you got pain, you got a purpose. I mean, you know, I didn't read my first book cover to cover until I was 35, and now my name's on 2 books on Amazon. I mean, so we as men, we can take our legacy, take it away from the victimhood of our past, and that's one of the things we got to do as men.
Yeah, if you, as a man, and we talk about it quite a bit, go back to some of our episodes. If you're looking for a purpose, if you're looking for your path, look at your past, look at your struggles. Every man's past, his struggles, his challenges will lead him to his purpose. You know, a lot of times your purpose is found in your pain. So dig in. Don't be a victim. You are responsible. You have the power. And if you need any help or support, contact us. You're part of the Madmen Mafia now. We are the Madmen. I'm Jason. That's Kirk. And until next time, we are out.
Out.